I'm on my 5th cup of coffee, possibly 6th. I kind of lost track. It's going to be an interesting video. Hey, what's up? My name is John Bonjour. I'm an artist and a film enthusiast. I have drawn some art and I would like to enthuse about some film. Today we're talking about Deadpool 2 in lead up to Deadpool and Wolverine. It was directed by David Leitch, who also made Bullet Train and something recently, The Fall Guy, which was a very fun film. I don't know if I made a video on that one. Really good time if I didn't. It stars Ryan Reynolds, as these tend to do. Miranda Baccarin once again plays Vanessa, although significantly less in this than the first one. TJ Miller still is in this, unfortunately, for comedy. Zazie Beetz, I think that's how you pronounce her name, who is just an absolute gem, plays Domino, and Cable is played by Josh Brolin. Could I look these things up? I absolutely could, but I'm pretty lazy, and so I don't. Yeah, this is an interesting video for me to make because the context for this one is kind of inverse from the original. When I first saw this, I enjoyed it, but I was a little disappointed because I felt like everything was copy-paste. I felt like this was just the original movie, again, with a couple of new things. To me, that was really frustrating at the time because I wanted it to be as fresh as the original was. Jeez. Again with the sirens. What is this, Hell's Kitchen? I'm in Christchurch, New Zealand. There's not that much crime going on. That might be an ambulance. I'm going to feel really bad if that was an ambulance. I guess this is just the year for learning this. I can't trust past John and his opinion on anything. I will give him this. Some of the jokes are definitely copy-paste. TJ Miller is nothing. He's dead. He's got nothing going on in this movie, and it's so frustrating. I was tired of his whole whatever had sex with whatever joke in the first one. Imagine how just what a cheese grater to my mind it is when he shows up and starts doing the same skis over and over again. The best thing I can say about it... I don't know how much of that you heard, but the sweetest little old New Zealand lady gave me a package just now. That was the best interaction I've ever had. Man, this video is just hard to record today. I genuinely couldn't tell you what I was talking about. I could play it back, but it's been recording the whole time, so I'm not going to do that. Oh, yeah, no way, I can't believe I pulled that from the cobwebs. The only good thing I can say about TJ Miller in this film is sometimes he sets up Ryan Reynolds for a good line. Again, I'm going to kind of dive into spoilers throughout the whole video, so again, if you haven't seen it, watch the movie and then come watch the video. I really do like this film quite a bit, though. I genuinely don't trust past John at this point on anything X-Men related. I watched through the Fantastic Four movies the other day, and I was right about those. They're okay. They're okay. We'll get back to Deadpool in a second, I promise, but I will take any opportunity to acknowledge this. It is unconscionable, the idea that you would be engaged to someone and they turn into a big rock monster and you break up that engagement. Marriage is for better or worse, okay? Sickness, health, rock monster, not rock monster. I know for a fact that my wife, if I turned into a rock monster, would love me slightly less, probably. The idea that you're prepared to marry someone and then something bad happens to them and you go, nah, you're too weird for me. You're too much of a freak. You know what? Ben Grimm, Michael Chiklis, you're better off without her. You're doing great, buddy. I know those movies are like 15 years old now. I don't care. You're doing great. I hope Michael Chiklis as Ben Grimm shows up in Deadpool and Wolverine just so we can see how great he's doing without her. Anyway, back to Deadpool. This is an absolute gem of a film. While some of the jokes are kind of similar to the first, so much of this develops on what was built in the original and plays in a new space that feels completely fresh. I don't know what I was thinking. I love this movie. I genuinely do. I think if I'm going to hit on my main problem with the film first, the heart of the story doesn't fit as naturally as it did in the original. Wade and Vanessa's relationship is the heart of these movies, which... very curious to see how that works in Deadpool and Wolverine. Anyway, Wade and Vanessa's relationship is so important to these films, and I do appreciate what they did with their characters. It's a little fridgy, but I think they do a good job to make her involved in the story still, keep her as a part of it. And then they go in and retcon it right at the end, and it kind of doesn't matter, so I think they do a good job making that not a huge issue. But it is a little tougher to keep the heart of the story as a through line when the whole character arc is letting go of the heart of the story. It's a weird situation they've written themselves into, and I think the movie is slightly worse off for that. I will say I don't like this one as much as I do the original Deadpool. I think there is a beauty in the simplicity of the first movie that this just doesn't have. We're dealing with time travel, different mutants, new canonical events. We're trying to keep the same characters and introduce new characters to be involved in it. We're introducing Juggernaut. Which, wonderful. Love this version of Juggernaut. He's great. But my point is that this movie introduces so much and tries to deal with so much that at some point it's hard to ground yourself back into a relationship, especially when that relationship is in, I think, 3 or 4 scenes throughout the film and from, the perspective of the afterlife. That's not to say that this movie is terrible for that by any means, but it is my biggest issue. Aside from that, though, this really is a fun movie. All the things that they introduce, the time travel with Cable, I really do enjoy that. I think they do a good job making it feel very similar to the other X-Men. You can see him coming from the Days of Future Past type timeline. It's just electric to watch them in a scene. Reynolds brings this fun, chaotic light energy, and Brolin brings this grounded, heavy, dark energy. It's just an absolute blast. I mentioned earlier, Zazie Beetz is so fun in this movie. I love the idea of luck being a superpower. It is kind of funny to watch this and then watch Bullet Train, because this is just David Leitch's audition. It's like a 30-second segment of this that is almost one for one just the climax of Bullet Train. I don't really mind. I genuinely think that's kind of funny, and it works super great in both movies. And just generally throughout the movie, all the characters work really well and click together, TJ Miller excluded. They also keep the choreography from the first one. Deadpool is still just as chaotic and random with his fight movement as he ever has been. There's some really funny jokes. I like when he uses the brick to fight a bunch of people. Speaking of choreography, though, I think Cable's fight style is extremely unique in a completely different way. I love how many limbs he breaks just to break limbs. It happens all the time. It's genuinely amazing to me how good the choreography is for these movies and how little I noticed it and how little that's talked about. As funny as these are, they're genuinely solid action movies. They do a great job making the fights interesting. They have, differing stakes. Having Juggernaut come in and then fight Colossus. I love having those 2 fights going on at the same time because you get to see the variation in fight styles and it never becomes boring. And there's probably 20 minutes of this movie at the back end where people are just punching people. In a worse movie with worse choreography, that would be so boring. That would be nothing. It is interesting watching this in the context of looking forward to Deadpool and Wolverine. I can see a trajectory where if they continue down the path that they started with the first and continued with the second, there's a chance that this might go too far. It might have, way too much going on, introducing way too many new things that just don't click together. Or B, it might do all the same things and it's just not interesting because we've already seen that movie 1.5 times. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I tend to think that this is going to be a fresh, new kind of story. It's going to be a different take on Deadpool. Having Wolverine involved is already enough to make me radically excited, but I do think it's going to be something completely different from the first 2. But if they do continue the trend, I would be a little bit worried that that's a tough needle to thread. You don't want to introduce too much and shake people off the ride, but you also don't want to introduce too little and do too little with it and have people be bored. I don't envy the people writing Deadpool and Wolverine, because not only are you saddled with the weight of continuing this franchise that has 2 rock-solid entries, you also have to find your way into a franchise that has, 30-something pretty good to really, really great movies. You have to be the first R-rated movie in that franchise. You have to deal with all the stuff going on in that world. I cannot imagine writing that. I would have no idea where to start. Anyway, point being, Deadpool 2 is an absolute blast. None of the things that they introduce outstay their welcome, specifically the X-Force. And while it does feel a little bit crowded, nothing feels so radically out of place or jarring that I can't get on board with the movie. And at its core, it's still a really funny, really exciting Deadpool movie. I do enjoy this movie slightly less than the first, but that doesn't stop it from being a really good time and another solid entry into the Deadpool franchise. I can't wait for Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm sure you feel the same way. But it is nice to know that even if it's terrible, which I don't think it's going to be, but even if it is, we have two really good Deadpool movies on our hands, and that is way more than you could have asked for in 2012, certainly. It's crazy that these movies exist. It's crazy that we have these raunchy, kind of childish, hilarious, R-rated, violent, gory comedy movies that are also so true to the heart of the comics. It's wild that these movies exist, and I am so happy that they do. Thank you for watching this video and checking out my channel. If you'd like to hear more of my thoughts on movies, comics, TV shows, franchises, anything of the sort, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and comment down below what you'd like me to review next. Or do none of those things, because I am not your dad. It is unconscionable what... It is unconscionable what... It is unconscionable what... Hey, what's up? My name is John Bonjour. I have... No, that's not at all right.